Inspire Wealth podcast. My name is Mallory Meehan, Prof M, if you know me by my alter ego. And I am joined today by my friend BJ. BJ, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So BJ, you are a man of many hats, and you, like myself, like to stay busy, like to stay into a bunch of different roles. And so tell us about your journey, how you got to where you are now, and then we'll kind of dive deeper into that.
Will do. Well, first again, thank you so much again for having me. We've known each other 2 months, and you're probably one of my favorite people year to date that I've come in contact with. I
Well,
love that
thank
here we
you.
are. I also like for me, I did like a replay of my timeline, and it's just so crazy for me to be sitting here talking about wealth when 15 years ago I was negative almost $100,000 in stupid debt, not even good debt, and we'll kind of touch on that later. But my path, what got me to this point is just that blue collar mentality. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, left Pittsburgh in my mid 20s, landed in Charlotte, North Carolina. Didn't know a lot of people. I just took that blue collar drive that was like instilled in me. And I just started grinding through different projects and just, anytime I saw an opportunity, I seized it. And I was blessed by some people that I came in contact with. And I just latched on to anything that was educational that I can learn from.
Mhm.
So whether it was a mistake or just somebody that was a little bit above me in a different level, I would just kind of latch onto that. So my main vessel has been franchising. So what got me started in franchising was My Gym Children's Fitness Center. I started out as a part-time employee wiping down mats, eventually worked up to lead teacher, to director, to eventually co-owner. The opportunity that I speak of was my business partner, Ryan Hahn, and we ultimately ended up collaborating on a mosquito control home service business that took things to another level that I would have never envisioned in my life. And that's, through different means and just reinvesting back in that business and then eventually getting into real estate, investing through that. It certainly has changed my complete outlook on my own life. And I hate to be cliche, but I'm currently living my best life.
I love that. I love that. So you started off as, we'll just call it a W-2 employee, right?
Yeah.
So part-time, you had somebody else paying for your time. And then
Right.
was there something that kind of triggered that told you, like, I need to do something different because I don't want to continue living this way?
Absolutely. Ironically, I got my real estate license in 2007, so I thought that was what it was going to be. I went and worked for a builder, so I sat in a model home all day, and that absolutely wasn't it. But what the beauty was is it gave me this time to sit there and kind of figure things out where when most people think of franchising, they think of McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or Subway. What I kind of learned in that window of time where I wasn't at the Children's Fitness Center is, I never saw the owner, Ryan, right? So he was a semi-absentee owner. And I started thinking, I'm like, I don't really want to work for anybody else. So the opportunity came and he's like, hey, why don't you come back and we'll work out a deal where there can be some ownership. You got to run this thing. Basically, don't let this fail. If it fails, we're all out, right? And we worked together for 2 years, built the business back up. And he's like, okay, let's try something else. And for me, it was just understanding what franchising is because everybody has this preconceived notion like, I don't want Subway, I don't want Dairy Queen. That's not what it's about. There's so many different models that are franchised now that if you think of it, it could be a franchise.
Yeah, and I think it's somebody who did really well in their particular business and trade. And now they've put together all of the processes and procedures as to how to run this business. And then they basically give you the tools and resources like that you can do it day one with having the backing of a corporation that's also helping you along the way.
Yeah, my best way to pitch a franchise, it's a business in a box, right?
This is
So
the box,
everybody gets these
absolutely.
home meals delivered now where you take it out of the box, you follow the ingredients, and now you have dinner, right? So you don't have to really think about it. Effort still has to go into it, don't get me wrong, but
Yep.
the business in the box is there for you.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All the ingredients are there. It's just a matter of how you're going to follow the directions in order to get to where you need to go.
That's right.
Awesome. Okay, so 2007, you get your real estate license. At what point in time do you enter the mosquito franchise business?
That would have been 3 years later. So I think we signed like January 2nd or 3rd, 2010. Yeah.
Okay, and you started out with how many territories initially?
Um, Probably five or six.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But back then it was, there were it wasn't as strict. We were one of the first, we were an early adopter, so we kind of got to pick where we wanted to be in Charlotte. In hindsight, we should have just taken it all, but and we would eventually make some trades and things later, and
Yeah.
we would acquire the territory that we ultimately have today and that we wanted.
Awesome. Okay, so you're in this mosquito business,
Mhm.
and then what led you to then make the next move? Like, was it then you were like, I need to invest in real estate, or was it then you were like, I need to look at maybe other businesses that I can like wrap up with this?
It was a little bit of both. I think for us, it was we started the businesses out of our driveways, right? So neighbors don't like that when one truck, fine, they don't care. But you now have a fleet, and you have people just showing up all time of day, blocking the streets. So we quickly had to go find commercial space. We made those moves twice, and then we're like, okay, instead of paying ourselves, let's buy our office. And we did that. And luckily, the people that we bought off of, they took the front space. We worked out of a tiny little area in the back, but we ultimately wanted the back lot for our truck. So it was a win-win.
Mhm.
Then the next year, the place next door goes for sale. These guys now needed the full building. We went next door, same thing. Then these guys leave like a year later. So now we have both buildings, we have more land. We just dropped the fence between them. So now we have this beautiful half-acre lot in the middle of Charlotte that we can operate out of. And we just if we ever had a need or a want, obviously we would address those, but we just kept finding more things to invest in. We bought our first multifamily property by year four, I'm sorry, 5 or 6. And then we just, every year we'd pick something else up just because it just made sense, and we enjoyed doing it. So our
Now,
franchise addiction was paying for our real estate addiction.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. Now, when you say we, who are you talking about?
Ryan and myself. Yeah,
Okay.
he's my better half. We got together in January of 2008. That was when we formed our partnership. I didn't get married to my wife until July of 2008. So legally, I've been bound to him longer than I have my life. So
I'm sure she loves hearing that.
I tell her she's fine. She doesn't mind.
So you basically really leaned into having a partner and having somebody along the journey with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know it doesn't work all the time, but we are just so different in so many different ways that we balance each other out. I'm the dreamer, he's the analytical guy. And he keeps me grounded. We offset each other very well. So it really couldn't have worked out any better,
No,
in
that's
terms of
awesome.
partnership.
I think for people, especially when they're starting out and trying to get into, ownership of a business, ownership of real estate, that one of the easiest and probably smartest ways to do it is to partner with others and to share resources together, whether that's financial, whether that's like network, everything. I think that's really where you can set yourself up for success.
Absolutely. And I've seen some incredible husband wife teams that have those same similarities. So if that works, I think that's ultimately the best play, because nobody's going to be more invested in the business than you and your spouse, right? So it just kind of works out in that regard.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that that's it's not always going to happen, but when it does, it's definitely a good match for sure. And I think our friends Brittany and Sean are good examples of power couples that just know
Absolutely.
how to make things work. And you know, other people, spouse is happy doing something else, so you got to figure out somebody who you want to lean in on. And so I totally get both sides. And
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, so we have the mosquito business, and now we have some real estate, we have some commercial assets, we have some multifamily. What's
Mhm.
something you've learned about the difference between owning a business and owning real estate?
Oh, wow. I mean, there are so many similarities. I mean, if we treat our real estate, the rentals like a business. Those tenants are our customers, right? That
Huh?
when they're happy, they're more inclined to pay. It doesn't
Mhm.
always work out that way, but knowing that you're going to make every customer happy is also madness too. So you got to find that balance. Um, but I think it's just, there's we treat things almost too similar in some ways. So I don't really my mind is now just kind of on that straight and narrow. I know there's we kind of drive down the gray area and swerve into the black and white area more than anything. But um, I think on the real estate side, it's just sometimes we let the simple things get away from us and we overcomplicate them. I've learned that in real estate, and I certainly made that mistake in 2019 where I got away from my model of what I was looking for, and I stopped, and I wasn't as aggressive, and I let deals go away from me for pennies on the dollar. And then of course 2020 happens, and I was like, I could have tripled my money, time and time again, but I got stupid and lazy, and I just took my eye off the ball. So I mean, those are the big things that jump out at me. It's just sometimes overcomplicating the model. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so then I want to know a little bit more about when you first started the business. Did you fund the business through your own personal money? Did you finance it? How were you able to have this partnership with Ryan to actually move forward on the franchise?
I mean, luckily for us, it was just, we were able to fund it out of pocket, because the startup wasn't crazy at the time. We franchise fee for your territory. We needed a truck, a couple backpack foggers, some product. Back then it was Google AdWords were just starting to really ramp up, so we put some money aside for marketing. So, I mean, as the business scaled, we just kept putting money back into the business. He had a W-2 of his own. I was still with the kids' gym, so I wasn't really getting paid from the mosquito business. So, that seemed to really give us that leverage we needed, because we weren't really that concerned about the cash flow and paying ourselves out. Everything else was being taken care of on the other side. So having that advantage was certainly nice, because we didn't really stress over, oh, we got to pay ourselves. We just kept compounding for the next couple of years, and we didn't even really start thinking about taking anything out until year 3, and that's when we ended up buying that initial office.
Oh, nice. That's great. So, when you have people that are thinking that owning a business is something they maybe want to get into, what model do you want people to think about? Whether you are the owner operator, whether you're a semi-absentee owner, or whether you're literally just an investor in the business, like what things should people think about before they pull the trigger?
I mean, that's being on the consulting side now. It's just, I think everybody's a little bit different, and really getting to know who they are. And that's typically after the consultation, which is about a 60-minute call. I get to really see, okay, this person, I know they're saying that they want semi-absentee, but they really want to be a hands-on owner operator. They're just afraid to leave the W-2. I think somebody, I would love for more investor models to certainly work, but you really have to know what you're doing, or you have to have an amazing GM or somebody that you're planning into there, right? You can't just hope it works, right? Because it's just not, I mean, it's just, there's so much on the table by having to pay somebody else. So
Right.
to me, it's that owner operator is probably the number one for somebody that's just getting started, but I know that that's not always feasible. So if you can dabble in that semi-absentee where you're still going to be able to commit 20 to 25 hours a week, whether even if that's after work or, nights and weekends, until you're able to scale that business to be able to leave that W-2. Because the number one answer that I get from my candidates is they want freedom and flexibility. I think people are willing to leave a 9 to 5 of working 8 hours to work 16 hours for themselves. They're willing to take that sacrifice because they know that that's going to pay dividends in time later.
Yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so now you've been mentioning that you are a consultant, and so what led you to kind of making that shift, and what have you learned along the way as being a consultant, talking to a bunch of, interested entrepreneurs and people? Give us some of your little tidbits.
Sure. I think what was funny is, I don't know if you've ever watched the movie We're the Millers, when the one
Oh yeah.
kid's like, we're
Hmm.
gonna get paid for this. I was basically doing that for like a decade, where people were like, oh, so and so's talking about going into a franchise. You should talk to BJ. He's been doing this,
Yeah.
and people would end up buying a franchise. I was like, hey, good job. Let me know how things go, right? And then, later I have a buddy who also has a Mosquito Authority franchise, and he's a consultant as well. And he's like, yeah, man, this is what we do. You talk to a bunch of people. Some work out, some don't work out, some do work out. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And you get to help people. And I thought my story was interesting enough, because there's no way I'm living the life I live now without franchising, right? So I was like, so it's either going to resonate or not with people. But I think the biggest thing for me to get beyond is, not everybody's wired like I am. Fear is going to overcome 75% of the people that I talk to. It's just going to overpower them, and they're going to stay with where they are because that's where they're the most comfortable.
Mhm. Yeah, it's getting outside of that comfort zone though. That's really going to be where the changes happen. And that's one of the things, even like with real estate investing, it's like you can continue to analyze a property, you can continue to say you're going to invest, but until you actually pull that trigger and do it, it's always just going to be a pipe dream, right? It's always going to be something that, oh, I wish I would have gotten into this, or I wish I would have done that. I can't tell you how many people tell me that on a daily basis.
Well, I'm going to echo off of that because, Ryan and I have a great portfolio in North Carolina and South Carolina. But for me, the biggest overcoming of my own fear was in 2018, where I bought my first rental property on my own without, any partner. And, I've had all this experience running businesses. So I'm about 10 years of business ownership at this point, but I still had that wall in front of me because I'm like, what if I mess this up? And there's nobody to guide me through it. And
Yeah.
one day I just woke up and I looked over at my wife. I was like, I'm doing it today. And she's like, doing what? I was like, buying a property. She's like, okay. And that was like it. And that was like, and I went out and that's what we did. We bought it. And then a month later I bought another one. And then a month after that I bought another one. I was like, okay, this isn't that bad.
Doable. Yeah. So I always ask people, what was your strategy? Like, what was your thought process? Did you want to have a large portfolio that you kept long term? Did you want to keep things and maybe flip them? Did you want to maybe test out different types of rentals? What was your strategy?
So I wish I could say I had this like long thought out process. I mean, the first one, it was in my hometown where I grew up. So to me, I like to stick with what I know, right? That's why I've never invested in crypto. I still don't understand it. I know a lot of people that make money. I don't get it, so I don't do it. So for me, I knew that there was a demand. I was in a Facebook group, and I would see people, hey, we're looking for a rental in the area, looking for a rental, and I'm like, and I started doing some research. I'm like, there really aren't any rentals in this area. So I think I understood the demand, and that's ultimately what I was focused on, was just a specific area of a zip code. And where I kind of veered off is I would go dabble somewhere else, and it didn't do what it was doing in the other part. So, so that was my lesson, is stick with what you know, and just focus on that. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay. Something else will come along.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Is like when you're getting started, it's honestly best to start with what you know. So the market that you grew up in, the market that you currently live in, that you've spent time in, you understand the different, facets of the market, because every market is different, and
Right.
every place is going to have different demands, different neighborhoods that have different features, and you want to know, oh, this school district is better, or this is close to a park, so it has a higher demand, and all different things. And so I think your strategy is spot on, exactly what I would tell people to do as well. So you now have your own personal real estate portfolio.
Mhm.
You're a partner in some other assets. You're a
Mhm.
partner in the mosquito business. Now tell me, you did this consulting. So how long have you been doing consulting?
It'll be 3 years in October.
Okay, so did anything come out of the consulting that really kind of was like, oh man, why am I recommending this? I should be doing this.
My first placement was one of those power couples I was referencing earlier that it worked out to be a partnership. They ended up buying Everline here in Pittsburgh, and the more I learned about the brand, the more I learned about the founder. I was like, we don't have something like this in Charlotte, and then we also don't have anything like this in our portfolio. So we ended up moving forward with Everline in Charlotte. We bought, I think, about 6 territories as well. We're very nice guys, but we're not very neighborly. So we like to buy, we don't want people
Don't
breathing down our
come
necks. So
into
we're like,
my area.
we're gonna buy the giant circle around Charlotte. But yeah, we loved everything on the B2B side, and it certainly has been a challenge because going from a B to C business to B2B, there were definitely some hurdles that we overlooked from afar. So, but now we're wrapping up year 2, and we see the traction, and we're gaining momentum, and we're really excited about the opportunity.
That's awesome. So is Ryan a partner with you and your everyone?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
He's just along for the ride.
He's just, I mean, you want to talk about the hardest sell? Like, I probably throw him 30 to 40 things a year. And, when we do, like, that's what people are like, oh, you're just buying anything. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, he bats down, 39 of them, like
Yeah.
consistently.
Well, and it's good to have that balance. I think it's,
Absolutely.
you like you said, you're the dreamer, you're the like one who has the ideas, he's the
Yep.
analytical, he needs to crunch some numbers, he needs to understand that aspect. And those are the best teams that mash. Like,
It
right,
just it just
I
works.
like you and the visionary. I see a lot of things. I have a lot of ideas, but I need somebody to rein me in sometimes and
Uh-huh.
to say like, okay, let's take a look and make sure everything is in alignment, because I would be like you, I would be going out and saying like, there's opportunity, this opportunity, and this
Yeah.
opportunity, Now I do obviously understand like the financials, and I do my own kind of due diligence, if you will, but I think it's also important to have somebody else to kind of back you
Yeah.
on that.
That's
So
specialized. I
bring
mean,
you in.
that's
Yeah.
a superpower, right? So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so you have now a portfolio of mosquito business, real estate and commercial and multifamily, and now
Mhm.
in Everline.
Mhm.
So then what happens?
Well, we also grabbed Poolworks earlier this year, staying with the B2C side of things. We figure we already have an amazing customer base, loyal customers in Charlotte. We're already in their backyard, protecting them from mosquitoes. Their pool, just kind of worked
Yeah,
its way out. So we're only in month two. Next month will be month three. So slow and steady. That's just kind of our approach to things. So it's been a good start. We're learning day by day, just different things that come up, and it's been fun.
yeah. So I want to know your perspective on the difference between a business to consumer and a business to business model. What are some things that you've seen that you're like, you have to really focus in on this if this is your audience, and you have to maybe tweak things a little bit?
I think both are relationship um, built and driven. It's just different types of relationships where to going back to when we got started with mosquito, we had the my gym, we had the kids fitness center, so those people already knew me. So we got started with the people that understood who I am, what I represent. They trusted me to do the service, so they helped get that going. So we're sort of leveraging that on the mosquito to pool works now, right? And then on Everline, it's saying, okay, who have we come in contact on the real estate side? Who do we know in those pockets? And just it's been a little bit more of just purposeful networking and getting out and just talking with people we know that look, they might not need us tomorrow, but they're going to need us in 6 months. And it's like, okay, just staying on top of it, following up, staying fresh in their minds. So the long play there has been a little bit just it's been a solid reminder for us. Okay, just be patient here, stay on course, and that having that support from day one through John Evans and his team was incredible because it allowed us, okay, hey, don't get discouraged, just keep doing these things, and it'll turn into good stuff for you in the future, and it
Yeah,
has.
I think when it comes to B2B, you definitely have to kind of make the pathway and really set yourself up and really understand the timeline where,
Yeah.
it's not going to be an immediate sale like it might be to a B2C. You're going
Hmm.
to have to, have a lot of touches, and you're going to have to get with the right decision maker too, because the homeowner, yeah, they're the decision maker. So it's easy to find them. But when it comes to, property management or other people that are managing businesses, you really have to get to who is the decision maker.
That's right.
And, sometimes it's a little bit, you have to go through a little bit of, get through the gatekeeper to get to that person. And, you want to find the gold at the end of the, of the
That's right.
rainbow. And so, yeah.
And
Okay. So
yeah.
I'm curious, and I know you and I have talked a little bit about how you funded your, current businesses. Can you speak about how you would, if you were a entrepreneur, which you are,
Mhm.
if you were a new entrepreneur, what kind of avenues would you recommend people to go about to finance this in order to help make this a reality? Because I think a lot of people get stuck on, I don't have this amount of money saved up. I can't leave my W-2 because I need insurance or I need whatever. So what kind of opportunities do people have that they can explore?
That's a great question. And this is one that I'm consistently learning more and more about because luckily for us, we've been leveraged with cash available at different times. And then we're like, okay, well, cash is king. Let's leave that there. We have a line of credit on one of these properties or off of this business. Let's buy that. We'll just pay ourselves back. So I think as you grow a portfolio, you sort of have money sitting there that you don't see it every day, but it's there, right? So it's accessible. And when you calculate the risk or whatever, you're looking to do with on the investment side, then you say, okay, this is what I can afford to do with these funds. This is going to be the rate that I'm going to borrow off of myself. This is, obviously there's risk associated with any type of investing, but to me, it's using your own resources and not having to go through the process, of borrowing from a bank, because I believe those things are in place for a reason. They're like, we're just going to keep throwing you stuff, and if you keep coming at us, we're going to throw you some more, and then finally we'll eventually give in and give you the money, right? So I don't have that time. Ryan doesn't have that time. So for us, it's always like, what can we leverage
Yeah.
and borrow against and fund it that way. And that's seemed to work pretty well for us overall.
So you've basically been leveraging your other assets,
Mhm.
whether that be your real estate or your business. Um, Tell me, do you leverage on your network as well? And if so, how you go about asking people to either invest in you, to lend to you? What's that process look like?
So I have not done that personally. I've had people ask. I'm a little selfish because I know that I'm the grinder, and I'm going to be the one doing the work. So unless there's something really big that's out there, I think that would maybe get me over the hump. But um, I've worked my butt off to get to this point. So to just give it to somebody when I know I can kind of do that on my own, that's where I've stopped. But I've watched some friends that have done those sorts of things, and I've actually invested in other people that are out there doing, especially on real estate syndication and things along those lines, where I'm like, oh yeah, you're gonna get the call in the middle of the night and deal with the leaky faucet. Here's my money, take it,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah, right.
but I know that it's out there, and it's that creative lending side it's on my to-do list of things that I want to learn and understand a little bit more. I just haven't had a strong enough why to get over into that world myself.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I think that um it's an awkward conversation to have with people too, especially if you don't have that type of relationship with them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like when people say the friends and family model. And I know that when I talk to my friends and family that aren't in real estate, they look at me like I have three eyes and are
Hmm.
always like, why do you want to do that? Like, that's so much work. That's so, and I say I want to own businesses and I want to buy franchises, and they just kind of look at me, why? And they see the things that I'm trying to do, and basically I have an overall plan of I want to get here, but in
Hmm.
order to get here I need to do X, Y, and Z first. And it's sometimes very lonely because you don't have those people to have these conversations with, and it's not something that we're taught in school on how to
Yeah.
think, how to invest, how to actually create our own wealth, and especially wealth that we can then pass on to the next generation,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is I think
Absolutely.
what you and I are both kind of, what we want to do. We want to build up enough wealth that we can live passively and have our money work for us instead of us work for our money,
That's right.
and continue that, process over and over again.
Absolutely.
So tell me, BJ, what's next? What are you working on? What are you thinking you might be doing in the next, let's say, 3 years?
3 years. Okay. Well, first things first, my daughter is starting homeschool kindergarten in September. So that's number one. I think if there was ever a W-2 that I would have seen myself doing from like elementary school on, teacher would have probably been one of them. My wife taught in Charlotte for 8 years. So I'm excited to be a part of that. So I have to, acknowledge that, because that's ultimately what these last several years have been, is to be able to, we're kind of veering off the homeschool. We're going to eventually call it world school because we want to do it while we're traveling,
That's
right?
awesome. I love
We
that.
have hubs. We don't really have a home base anymore. It's like, okay, we're functioning out of Pittsburgh or Orlando, and we're passing through Charlotte when we got to check on the businesses. But We want to get out there and see the world. I'm 44. I want to keep going hard for the next 6 years till about 50. And so I'm probably seeing a little bit beyond a 3-year window. But I think it's just a matter of investing in my team and quality time concepts and just, what Ryan gave me was an opportunity, right? And I believe in paying that back, but I want to do it 10 times over, right? So I want to keep finding people in our, I call it our farm system, because like the people that we bring up, we have some amazing people. The first person we hired from Mosquito Authority is still with us, and he gets to be a stay-at-home dad. But if you need anything at any time, I can pick up the phone. He and I will work it out in a matter of minutes. All of our GMs have come up through the ranks of Mosquito. So, we kind of have this process now that just sort of happened. And then I realized that's what I actually love doing in these businesses, is watching these people shine. And instead of saying, hey, good luck, go on to do something else. I mean, we've certainly had people go out and we've encouraged that. We never want anybody to be there that doesn't want to be there or has the capability to go out and do their own thing. But for those people that are in-house that love us, that are loyal, that have that faith in us, and it's mutual and have that trust, we're like, okay, this is how Pool Works got started. We had 2 guys that were just like, they've hit their ceilings and we're like, you have nowhere else to go here. We're going to go create a new space for you. Same thing with Everline. So I want to do more of that over the next, half a decade, and focus on our team. And, I have a little girl, so my lineage will eventually tap out, but I want sort of set this legacy through our team, because, I, not to be cliche and be like, oh, we're a family, but I think if you ask anybody on our team, they would vouch and say that's that's how we treat each other. It's,
Yeah.
the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? So we treat each other as family.
I think that's great. And I think legacy really truly means whatever you want it to mean. Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that, you have to pass it on to your children. It doesn't mean that, you have siblings or whatever. It just means that you are leaving something of yourself for the next generation or the next people, whatever that looks like. I mean, just like you, I have a daughter, and, I'm not going to force her to get into the businesses and the line of work that I'm doing, but if she wants to, she'll have it. If not, I want my team and my other supporters to benefit and continue benefiting it from whenever I'm gone.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so you want to travel. Let's get off on some personal notes. Where is your top destination that you want to travel to right now?
Right now, I mean, we're huge Disney fanatics, so I want to go see all the overseas Disney parks. So, Disneyland Paris, Hong Kong, Shanghai. I think that's the big one. Sophia's she's not the greatest traveler, so the
Yeah.
2-hour flight to Orlando is like awesome. So we haven't been to Disneyland yet. So I think if you want a number one, we got to get her out to Anaheim.
Yeah.
That would be the starting point.
For sure, for sure. I don't know if I've told you this. My husband just got his pilot's license.
No, he did not tell me that.
Yeah,
I think I
so
knew that he was training. I didn't know that
yeah,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So he got his pilot's license. He's working on his instrument ratings, and so one of the things that we have planned long term is to do private charters for people, just like you, that the chaos of being on a full flight and having the flexibility, like that's kind of what we're going to be building eventually once he gets those hours, and we get a plane asset under our belt.
I I love I have a friend in Charlotte that flew down to see us in Kissimmee. He flew from one of the small airports in Charlotte. I was like, this is where, and so that's a big part of my why, is like those are things I eventually want to be able to cover those costs. And I don't want to fly myself. That's where I'm like,
Pay somebody
hey,
else. You
dude,
want to do
yeah,
that?
yeah,
Yeah, you
I
do
stay in
you.
my lane.
Yeah.
I would be an awesome passenger.
Yeah, I'm an awesome co-pilot. I don't want to be the pilot, so I'm good with that. But it is nice to, know somebody who can actually
Awesome.
like make that a reality. So when we get to that point, trust me, I will let you know. And
Yes, please
we can
do.
we probably won't be doing overseas, but domestically we can
Yeah,
help you
yeah.
get from
That's
state to state. You need to get to Charlotte, you need to get to Orlando. We could probably help you out with
I
that.
love it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's where you want to travel to. Are you a big sports fan?
Yes.
Tell me, who are your sports teams? Who do you follow?
Steelers, Pirates, Penguins, Pittsburgh,
Pittsburgh through and
pretty
through.
strict with that. Yeah,
How
yeah.
about college? Are you a sports fan of college?
My wife went to Pitt, so Pitt, I know you're a Penn State fan, but yeah, I grew up as a Pitt fan.
I think my family probably would have said I grew up a Pitt fan too, just because of, the area that you live in, even though Penn State is, all across the state.
Mhm.
Um, it was funny because I did get into Pitt and I got into Penn State and I chose Penn State over Pitt, which some people were happy about, some people not so much. And so
Yeah,
it's always been an interesting journey too. So, to talk about that, and when Pitt played Penn State, like always had that
yeah.
the rivalry going between the family and
Yeah,
um
I think you made the right choice though. When you look back in hindsight, I think you did all right.
I think I did all right too. I think, I love the small town feel in a bigger city, and I don't know that I would have been happy living in downtown Pittsburgh for 8 years, which is how long I stayed here. And so I think that it would have probably got to me, especially coming from a small town and not having to deal with too much traffic. So I am lucky enough that I can walk to work. I can, I have all the benefits of a big
Right.
city, at least a lot of benefits of a big city here in my little ball of State College.
Love it.
Okay, so BJ, I want to know, are you reading any good books? Do you have any good book recommendations for our
Um, yeah, I'm still working through traction. Um, 10x is easier than 2x. And then I just picked up The Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. My mom gave me that for my birthday 15 years ago, and I guess I haven't read it in 15 years, but I've just been looking, it's been an eye opener because I'm just I have notes in there that I totally forgot about, and it's been cool to go back and like reread that
Yeah.
and reread the notes as well. So I'm a slow reader where I like when I catch something, I'll stop and then I'll just kind of digest it and apply it wherever I can. And then so sometimes it'll take me a year to read a book if I'm doing it, methodically.
Yeah. No, I love that. Now, were you telling me you're writing a book?
I am, yeah,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
How's that coming?
It's coming along. I probably this month has been crazy because we've been bouncing all over the place. I forgot that we started the month out in Orlando, and I've just been back, Orlando to Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh to Memphis, Memphis back to Pittsburgh, back to Cleveland, and then we go back to Orlando tomorrow. So I did give myself a deadline to at least start the formatting at the end of July. So within the next couple of days, I'll really start breaking it down. I think I have the words that I want, and I just have to because I'm very ADHD. So when something comes to me, I'll type it up and just put it there, and I'm like, okay, I'll build off of this later. So there are just 12 to 15 different sections. Now I have to break them down, but that's just my way of thinking. So I have to go with that.
Well, I'm right there with you. My brain works like different ways, and I'll have great ideas. I'll be listening to something, I'll need to write it down, or I know I'll forget. But then putting it all together, that's where the magic will happen. And so
Yes.
I want to wish you luck with that because I know
Thank
that
you.
process is not easy. I wrote a textbook, so I understand like how the writing process works and going through edits and really making sure fine tooth comb that it's good to go. So kudos to you. Hopefully you'll also release an audible version of it so people can listen to it.
Yeah, yeah, I feel like I would have to, at this stage. That's where I catch myself more now. I was a big like, I want the paper back, and now I'm like, I want to listen to it when I'm driving. Right.
Exactly. That's exactly how I am too. I still do like the paper versions, and that's how I take notes and I
Mhm.
go back and reread it. But I have found that listening to it, especially when you're just driving and you have a long drive and it's basically you're on the same road for hundreds of miles or
Yeah.
whatever. I love getting that. I listened to two audibles on my way back from the Outer Banks.
Okay.
So it was like I have them in paper version, so now I'm going back and reading the paper version. So
Nice.
I'm reading, I'll just tell you what I'm reading right now. I'm reading some books by Donald Miller. I don't know if you know Donald Miller. I know this is backwards, but this one is How to Grow Your Small Business. And he also has a marketing plan book. And so really looking at your business as a marketing tool and how to better formulate your messaging, how to create strong websites, strong market presence. And then I'm also reading the book Profit First.
Okay, awesome.
So that's what I'm reading. And so I want you to leave us with one final thought. If you could go back and give your 25-year-old self a piece of advice,
Okay.
what would that piece of advice look like?
Focus on, if I can go back to when I was 25, focus on my team first and allow them to shine through their strengths instead of trying so hard and being stubborn to grind through and holding on to tasks for too long. Sticking to what I know, what I excel at, instead of trying to do it all. And I mean, that was at least a 5 to 7 year lesson right there. If I could shave that off of my life, I couldn't even tell you where I'd be right now. But to go back and just allow people to shine and let them, do what makes them happy, and then to recognize that and to figure out how did they like to be rewarded. Not everybody's money driven. Some people love those words of affirmation, and I was one of probably the worst leader managers because I just thought, here's money, that'll make you feel better, right? And it doesn't work every time. So yeah, I think just to focus on the team, because we can only get so far by ourselves. So the quicker and not necessarily the quicker, but the stronger you can build a team around you that are loyal, that puts you in an incredible spot.
No, I think you're absolutely spot on. And I think, finding those partnership opportunities like you spoke upon, having good mentors, having people in your corner, like that's really what's going to help you accelerate any sort of investment opportunity, whether that be real estate, whether that be businesses. But what I always tell people is don't let it continue to be a tomorrow thing. Yeah. If you're actually going to change your life, you need to do something that's going to change in order to see that change. So BJ, where can our listeners find you? Where can they follow you?
Wow, I'm horrible at social media, but I'm starting to develop more of a LinkedIn presence. So I think on LinkedIn is okay. I don't really have anything else on YouTube. I dabble. I think once I knock out the book, I'm going to probably, do what you're doing here. I love this format. I love what you're doing. I've watched I think this is episode 3. Is that right?
Yeah, this will be episode 3. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. But yeah, I've listened to your initial one and the one with is it Zach?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are great. So I love what you're doing here, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. So I like this format. So this is where I want to eventually get to.
I love that. Well, whenever you start your podcast, let me know, and I will certainly love to be a self-invited guest on your podcast.
Oh, you're definitely. I told you. I don't throw that out. Like you're top of the list.
I love that.
People I've come in contact. I mean, and I got to meet Gary Vee last week in Cleveland. So you're up there. I mean, it's like you guys are kind of the top of the list right now.
Wow, so I take that as a very high compliment. So thank you. I appreciate that. That's awesome.
And kudos to the Krasneriks. I mean, they got a good eye for talent. Here we are, episode 2 podcast, and they put together a nice little program.
Brady and Sean.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, BJ, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and hearing all about your story. And it's a very impactful one. I think a lot of people can resonate and hopefully aspire to be where you're at and where you plan on going.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's been a fun journey, and I don't take it for granted. So I'm always happy to talk to anybody I can, and I want to pay it back, pay it forward. I mean, all of it, because it's some days I don't realize, or I don't comprehend how I got here. So
sure, absolutely, love that. All right, well, until next time, thanks for listening to the Inspire Wealth podcast. I am Mallory Meehan, Prof. Out.